Mars, the InSight lander will have to end its activity. The US probe will soon be out of power. There's too much dust on its solar panels. Using an ultra-sensitive French-made seismometer called SEIS, InSight carried out its mission to map the interior of the red planet thanks to recording of 1,300 Mars quakes. Scientists are now able to confirm that the core of Mars is indeed liquid, that the thickness of the planet's crust is less thick than expected, and that it is probably made up of 3 layers. The seismic activity could be a result of temperature anomalies caused by the mantle of planet's crust. The InSight mission did experience one failure, with its heat flux sensor HP cubed. It had to be buried 5 meters below Mars' surface to measure its temperature, but it could not dig down far enough and the effort was abandoned.
In association with Sensodyne Daily Sensitivity Protection, Voltas Pure Air Adjustable AC.
Yasin Malik is expected in minutes from now. The order has been slightly delayed by over 2 hours now in an NIA court in the national capital after the conviction of Yasin Malik on charges of terrorism and waging war against the government. All eyes are now on the National Investigation Court that will pronounce the quantum of sentence. Will it be death for the face of Pakistan-sponsored terror in the Kashmir Valley, or will it be a life term? Those are the only 2 real possibilities at this point of time. The NIA has asked for the death sentence. Yasin Malik has pleaded guilty to all charges. In the shadow of the suspense over Yasin Malik is the young Safa, 9-year-old Kashmiri girl who was shot by terrorists yesterday, even as she tried to save her father, a police constable in the Jammu and Kashmir police, the newest face of the same kind of terror that Yasin Malik has bred, fermented and spread across Jammu and Kashmir for decades before he claims he gave it all up and became an ally of successive governments of the day. The point is, his victims are asking for justice and they want nothing less than death for Yasin Malik. But pronouncement of death or life term is not in the public's hands. It is in the hands of the National Investigation Court that will be making its pronouncement very shortly. And I'm going to be taking you live through these big developments right here on India Today. Non-stop coverage here on India Today. Thanks for staying with me. I'm Shiv Arur. These are the headlines at 5. Like I said, NIA court to pronounce quantum of punishment for Valley terrorist Yasin Malik in terror funding case shortly. Faces minimum of life imprisonment, maximum of death penalty, which is what the investigation agencies want. 9-year-old Safa Qadri inflames the entire nation. Terrorists killed her father, Constable Saifullah Qadri, and shot her in Srinagar yesterday. India prays for her recovery. Anger erupts over the targeted killings of innocents. Another huge setback to the Gandhis. India Today, big news break. Kapil Sibal dumps the Congress, files Rajya Sabha nomination on a Samajwadi Party ticket. It's dumping season for the Congress party.
मुझे कि अब वक्त आ गया है कि मुझे एक निर्दलीय के रूप में, अगर मुझे सदन में जगह मिलती है तो मैं एक निर्दलीय के रूप में आवाज उठाऊं.
Is it a Gyanvapi rerun in Karnataka's Mangaluru after Hindu temple-like architectural design found allegedly beneath a mosque? VHP vows to perform puja near the disputed site. Non-stop communal polarization less than 11 months before the assembly elections in Karnataka. And no stopping the horrifying spree of murders in the city of Chennai. BJP functionary hacked to death with a sickle 2 days before Prime Minister Modi arrives in the Tamil Nadu capital. Big heat on the Stalin government. And we're waiting on the big order from the National Investigation Agency Court in Delhi that will, expected to, in the next few minutes, provide the quantum of sentence on Jammu and Kashmir terrorist Yasin Malik. He's been convicted, he's pleaded guilty on all charges, and now it is for the court that convicted him to pronounce the quantum of sentence on Yasin Malik. It will happen anytime now. The Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front, or JKLF leader, is an accused in a 2017 terror funding case. The NIA is pushing for the death sentence for Yasin Malik. Security, as you can see in some of these pictures, has been stepped up outside Yasin Malik's Srinagar residence. Drone surveillance has also been activated in sensitive parts of the city. There are also protests and sloganeering that are taking place in a small way in parts of Srinagar. Kamaljit Sandhu is with us live from outside the Patiala House Court, where the quantum of sentence is to be pronounced very shortly. Sunil Ji Bhatt is live with us from Jammu, from the home of squadron leader Ravi Khanna, one of the 4 Air Force victims that Yasin Malik murdered way back in 1990. Kamaljit, I want to come to you first. This order was supposed to come out. The first question I want to ask you, Kamal, is are things delayed? How delayed are they? Because this order was supposed to come out sometime around 3 p.m. Now we're past 5. What's happening inside court?
Well, Shiv, we do expect the court order anytime soon. But before that, Yasin Malik, who's currently lodged here in the lockup of the Patiala House Court. We'll just try and show you the visual from afar. You can see there is a heavy presence of security on one side, and this is the route he's going to take when he is produced. He'll be called in when the order is to be delivered. The quantum of punishment is to be announced. And before that, you can actually see a plethora of media out here. So we do expect the judgment to come. It may take some time. Remember, this is going to be a detailed judgment. This is regarding the 2017 terror funding case, about how post-2016, after Burhan Wani was killed, how terror was unleashed. There was stone pelting. The entire terror ecosystem worked in a way. So more than 24 people have been accused in the case. Conviction of Yasin Malik has taken place. Now this is regarding quantum of punishment. Now from guns to claiming to be a Gandhian is what Yasin Malik has said. And MS Cure was appointed to him. He's asked for a minimum punishment. The NIA has asked for maximum punishment of death sentence. So this is going to be very unusual. Now there are cases in Tada court which are regarding the killing of the 4 Air Force officers. There are the other cases which are pending against him. But this one is very significant because one, this is a newer case. This is regarding the terror funding, about how terror was unleashed, and all the top players, including Yasin Malik. And remember, he's been the top commander of JKLF. So there has been a history of terrorism and militancy before he became a separatist leader. Now, one of the pleas that he has taken is that at least 7 prime ministers have met him, even Prime Minister Vajpayee at that point of time gave him his passport. And remember, this is...
Okay, we've lost that link with Kamal. I'll come back to Kamal in just a moment. Sunil Ji Bhatt is with us in Jammu. He is at the home of squadron leader Ravi Khanna. Sunil has just had a conversation with squadron leader Ravi Khanna's wife, one of the victims of Yasin Malik. Sunil, I heard you earlier say that this is not just any ordinary court judgment. A huge amount of, sentiment, sorrow, tragedy, the hopes and dreams that have been smashed of so many people are all tied to this one individual. Because Yasin Malik, as you and I have discussed in the past as well, Sunil Ji, is someone who represents the worst of anti-India action, a person who has colluded with the enemy, the person who has, facilitated an environment where the killing and, injuring of children like Safa is possible. So in many ways, while we report the story of Safa today, Sunil, all of that is linked to what happens to Yasin Malik. Am I right?
Absolutely, Shiv, you are bang on. Yasin Malik is someone who is synonymous to terror, and he carried out some of the most gruesome killings in the Kashmir Valley in early 90s. And people have been suffering for last 30 years. The families of the victims, they have been crying for justice, but the system failed them. The system betrayed them. Finally, there is a ray of hope, and the victims, the families of the victims are hoping that Yasin Malik will be given death sentence. That's what they are saying. I spoke to Nirmal Khanna ji today also, and few days ago also. She clearly said that she wants death sentence for Yasin Malik. She was there in Srinagar when her husband was martyred in that terror attack which was carried out by Yasin Malik. Her grudge is that the system failed her, and her husband's valor was not recognized for last 3 decades until recently. So she is saying that there has not been that she is not just the victim of terrorism, she is also the victim of the system. She is the victim of the successive government. She told me that she idolized Dr. Manmohan Singh, but when Dr. Manmohan Singh was seen shaking hands with Yasin Malik, she was pained, she was aghast. She is saying that enough is enough, now justice should be delivered. Although Shiv, this case pertains to a terror funding case, but nevertheless it has come as a ray of hope for the families of the victims. They hope that the other cases that are pending against Yasin Malik in Jammu's Tada court will be expedited now, and Yasin Malik will be brought to justice. But Shiv, one needs to remember that Yasin Malik is not only a terrorist, a killer, but he's a self-confessed terrorist. Right. He's a self-confessed killer, and he's a remorseless killer, because in his interview to BBC's Tim Sebastian, he had clearly, proudly proclaimed that he was the one who initiated, so-called armed struggle against the government of India in the Kashmir Valley. So he was proudly proclaimed that he was the one who started terrorism in the Kashmir Valley. But despite that,
Sunil, we've just got breaking news that Yasin Malik is being brought to court. So the sentencing is going to happen in just a few seconds or a few minutes from now. So the suspense has built up to fever pitch, and the sentencing is going to happen any moment now. Yasin Malik is being brought to the NIA court, which is happening in the Patiala House Court complex. And that's where the sentencing is all set to take place in just a few minutes from now. High security outside Yasin Malik's residence in Srinagar. There have been some protests and some sloganeering by, his terror supporters. There are drones that are keeping tabs on sensitive parts of Srinagar at this point of time. The security agency is obviously keeping a very close watch on different groups and different sections between Delhi and Srinagar. And Yasin Malik is now being brought to the NIA court for that sentencing. Just less than 10 days after he was convicted, Yasin Malik will now face the full might of the law. He faces charges under Section 16 for terrorism acts, Section 17, raising funds for a terrorism act, 18, conspiracy to commit a terrorist act, and 20, being a member of a terrorist gang or organization of the UAPA. And sections 120B, criminal conspiracy, and 124A, sedition of the Indian Penal Code. These are the charges against Yasin Malik. This is what he has been convicted of. He's not contesting any of these charges leveled against him. But the immediate case on which he's being sentenced is for a terror funding case that dates back to 2017. Let's give you a recap once again of the charges against a man who has perhaps more than any other Valley terrorist become the face of terror, Pak-sponsored terror. Charge 1, indulging in acts of terror. That's under Section 16. Raising funds for terror activities. That's Section 17 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, or UAPA. Section 18, conspiracy to commit an act of terror. Then there is Section 20, charge number 4 under UAPA, being member of a terrorist gang or organization, links to terror groups basically. And finally, you also have 120B, which is 124A, which is sedition or anti-India activities, and 120B, which is criminal conspiracy. So these are the 6 charges against Yasin Malik. He has not contested any of them. He's been convicted on these charges, and now the sentencing will take place. All eyes are on the sentencing. The view is it can only either be a death sentence, which is what the National Investigation Agency is pushing for, or it could be a life term. It is unlikely to be anything else. Yasin Malik, who has basically pleaded before the court that he does not contest these charges, but has portrayed himself as a Gandhian. He has portrayed himself as someone who has dropped the gun and taken on Gandhiism. But that doesn't change the fact that he is a terrorist and continues to remain a terrorist, and he has faced due process of Indian law under sections of Indian legislations. Listen into some of these voices that have been coming in on India Today's big newsbreak coverage of Yasin Malik's fate. He's being taken to court, sentencing in a moment. Listen into these voices.
देखिए यहाँ तो ये तो मैंने पहले भी कहा एक सियासी मसला है जम्मू कश्मीर। यहाँ पहले भी कई लोगों को फांसी दी गई, उम्र कैद हो गई, फांसी हो गई, उससे तो मसला कश्मीर हल नहीं हुआ बल्कि और उलझ गया। तो मैं तो समझती हूँ कि ये जो इनकी मस्कुलर पॉलिसी है गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया की, इसके नताइज बरक्स होंगे, इसके नताइज अच्छे नहीं होंगे बल्कि इससे हालात जो है दिन ब दिन खराब होते जा रहे हैं।
He was very calm and he has told the court that कि मैं कुछ नहीं बोलूँगा, I will not say anything. आप अपने दिल खोल के पनिशमेंट दीजिए, जैसा भी आप दे सकते हैं, बट आप जो है ईमानदारी से पनिशमेंट दीजिएगा। आप जो भी मेरे को रखें, मेरे सारे सर्कमस्टेंसेस, सारे मिटिगेटिंग फैक्टर्स को ध्यान रखते हुए आप पनिशमेंट।
Yasin Malik is a terrorist. There should be no doubts for it. The court has convicted him. He's involved in terrorist activities. He's involved in supporting on terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir. He has been a sympathizer. He has been a tool of the Pakistan ISI.
Kamaljeet, Yasin Malik apparently being brought to court right now. What can you tell us? Has he arrived there already? Because this means sentencing will happen any moment now.
Yes, the security has been beefed up all along the way. The checking and frisking has been done. So at any point of time, he will be taken to the court where quantum of punishment will be announced. But significantly, this case has gone on for several years. And if you remember, Shiv, this entire investigation which was done by India Today in 2017, which eventually led the government to order a NIA probe into the unrest and terror funding which was taking place in Jammu and Kashmir. This has been very significant. There have been several players, at least 24 of them, who've been named and accused in the case. Yasin Malik now being convicted of this. He's been booked under Section 16, 17, 18 and 20 of the UAPA and Section 120B of IPC, which is waging war against the nation. The entire case is about terror funding, about how terror was unleashed, stone pelting done, hartal calendars given. It was going on in a very systematic way. Now, there were players who were operating very smoothly. Now, there has been put a stop to it. One part is that, yes, when he pleaded guilty, it was perhaps on the suggestion of some of those lawyers who would have said that this would actually kind of give a concession to him. We do not know if that is going to be the case, because remember when he spoke in the court, Yasin Malik said that he had moved, he'd given up guns, and from giving up guns to being a Gandhian, saying he had met several prime ministers. So that kind of a logic being given out there. Meanwhile, we've seen a spate of violence, those hartals and strikes and continuous turmoil.
And Kamal, sorry to interrupt you, but just wanted to quickly refer to the live images that we're getting. Not live images, they're deferred images, but we got them just a couple of minutes ago. They're the latest images that we're getting that we've been cleared to use of the dog squad and the bomb squad, the sniffer squad that is at the Patiala House court right now, because all security checks are being conducted because this is a very sensitive matter. Yasin Malik is still someone who is supported by Pakistan, as has been seen by the many, tweets that have been coming in from Pakistan, a country that has funded Yasin Malik for decades together, a country that has funded pretty much all the terror that you see in the region, and certainly all the terror that you see in the Kashmir Valley. And therefore, Yasin Malik for Pakistan is an asset. This is an asset who is going to, face his fate right now at the hands of an Indian court. He is a Kashmiri. He is a person who has taken Pakistan funding and used it to wreak misery on the people of Jammu and Kashmir, including the youth and children. And an entire generation is now hoping that this man finally meets his just deserts. That's what this sentencing is really all about, ladies and gentlemen. And that's the reason why from Shahid Afridi to Shahbaz Sharif to all the galaxy of Pakistani politicians and celebrities are all rooting for Yasin Malik, because he's their man. Ye Pakistani banda hai. He's their guy. He was the guy they funded. He's the guy they nurtured. He's the guy they trained. He's the guy through whom Pakistan channeled their will into the Kashmir Valley. And that's the reason why when he apparently gave up the gun and was caught and was put into prison, he had a free run for a very long time within civil society. But when he was finally arrested, he has pleaded guilty, because there is simply no way that he could have pleaded innocent, because the proof against him is so big, the proof against him is so extensive and explicit that Yasin Malik cannot cry victim right now, no matter what Pakistan does to try and paint him as some kind of a martyr. It's not going to happen. Whether they are Kashmiri Pandits, whether they are Muslims, people have suffered because of the brand of terror that Pakistan has unleashed on the Kashmir Valley through the hands of Mr. Yasin Malik. And that's what today's sentencing is all about. I'm going to go to Kamal in just a moment, but I wanted to just point you to those images on your screen of security checks taking place before Yasin Malik is produced in court. He's being brought to the NIA court in Delhi, where the sentencing will take place. It's already delayed by over an hour and 20 minutes. Obviously, some procedural delays on the ground there, but this is a sensitive matter. All things have to be taken into account before the sentencing takes place, and that's also the reason why you're seeing drones in Srinagar. You're seeing security hiked in parts of Jammu and Srinagar as well, the Kashmir Valley as well, because there will almost definitely be a backlash. There will almost definitely be some kind of a flare-up, based on what's going to happen in court in the next few minutes. Sunil, what can you tell us about that? The security arrangements. This is very sensitive. We've seen preparations of this kind take place, in the case of Afzal Guru, of various other terrorists who've been convicted and then sentenced, and even when they actually met their fate. Just describe for us what kind of preparations have been taken in Jammu as well as Srinagar, Sunil.
Absolutely, Shiv. Security has been beefed up in most parts of the Srinagar city, because the security agencies don't want to take any chances. There is apprehension that there could be a backlash the moment after the quantum of sentence is pronounced against Yasin Malik. Drones have been pressed into action, and there have been some protests. Handful of people have come out of their residences in Maisuma locality where Yasin Malik lives. They have come out of their residences. They have raised religious slogans, Islamic slogans, and they have also alleged that Yasin Malik has been, framed in a fabricated case. But the fact of the matter remains that Yasin Malik has confessed to his crimes. He has pleaded guilty, and that is why he was convicted. And today is the D-Day as far as Yasin Malik is concerned. He is going to be given punishment. And right now, Shiv, I am with the family of squadron leader Ravi Khanna. And Ravi Khanna was one of those 4 Air Force officials who attained martyrdom in that terror attack that was carried out by Yasin Malik and his other terror associates. And right now you can see that Nirmal Khanna, wife of squadron leader Ravi Khanna, is glued to the mobile phone. She is watching the news, and she is getting herself updated with every development that is taking place in the courtroom.
Amazing.
I will just try and again request her to talk, although she has said that she will only talk after the verdict is out. Nirmal Khanna ji, I know that you are not going to comment on the verdict, but can you just tell us about what happened that day when your husband attained martyrdom?
आप सबको पता ही है कि उस दिन क्या हुआ था। 25 जनवरी 1990 को रावलपुरा में ये लोग अपने प्रेस्क्राइब बस स्टैंड पे खड़े थे और बस का इंतज़ार कर रहे थे। सुबह 7:10 हुए होंगे। कोच वॉज लेट बाई 2-3 मिनट्स और 5 मिनट्स। तो इतने में यासीन मलिक हीरो होंडा पे आते हैं और आके उनको पूछता है कि नटीपुरा का रास्ता आप मुझे बता सकते हैं। मेरे हस्बैंड उसको नटीपुरा का रास्ता बताने लगे। ये बात मुझे इस तरह पता है कि उनके साथ जो दूसरा फ्लाइट लेफ्टिनेंट BR शर्मा थे, उनको मैं ये शहादत के बाद मिलने गई थी श्रीनगर बेस हॉस्पिटल। उन्होंने मुझे पूरी कहानी सुनाई थी हुआ क्या है। तो नटीपुरा का रास्ता जब ये बता रहे थे मेरे हस्बैंड, तो उसने इनके एब्डोमेन पे एक गोली मारी। उनके शोल्डर डिसलोकेट हो रखा था और वो गोली लगने के बावजूद उन्होंने अपनी ब्रीफ केस से उसका निशाना ख़राब करके उसकी गन को उन्होंने स्कफल किया और उसकी गन को एयर में कर दिया और सारी गन खाली कर दी पीछे से। और उसी टाइम उन्होंने BR शर्मा को शाउट करके कहा, शर्मा यू सेव योर सेल्फ, बिकॉज ही वॉज स्कफलिंग विद हिम, फाइटिंग विद हिम एंड ही वॉज अनआर्म्ड। गन भी उसी के हाथ में थी। तो पीछे से इन्हीं के और लोग आ रहे थे जिन्होंने 27 गोलियों का मैगजीन उनकी पीठ में खाली कर दिया। 28 गोलियां टोटल मेरे हस्बैंड को लगी हैं। और लड़ाई देखो, जब निहत्था इंसान मौत के मुंह में हो और उस टाइम एक की जान भी बचानी।
Saved lives also.
Yes, BR शर्मा's life was saved by, उस टाइम सिचुएशन ऐसी बन गई थी कि उन्होंने उसको तो बिजी रखा और वो BR शर्मा को आवाज़ दी और BR शर्मा पेड़ के पीछे जाके वो लेट गए तो वो बच गए। जब मैं अपनी गोलियों की आवाज़ आई, मैं अपने एटिक से देखती हूँ तो देख के क्या देखती हूँ कि बहुत सारे लोग एक घेरा बनाए हुए नाच रहे हैं। वो नाचना मुझे महाभारत का वो सीन याद आ गया जब अभिमन्यु मैदान जंग में लेटा हुआ है, उसके इर्द गिर्द ये कौरव नाच रहे थे। मैंने कहा पता नहीं क्या हुआ। एक गाड़ी भी फौजी गाड़ी खड़ी थी, कुछ फौजी लोग थे, क्योंकि मेरे घर के एक नीचे ही सड़क थी, सारा कुछ दिखाई दे रहा था। जब मैं वहाँ गई तो मैंने क्या देखा कि मेरे हस्बैंड का ब्रीफ केस जो है उसको बुलेट लगी हुई है, वो सड़क के ऊपर पड़ा है और मेरे हस्बैंड सीधा लेटे हुए हैं। और मैंने ये समझा कि एक गोली लगने से ये जवान लेट गया है तो हमारे देश का क्या होगा। मुझे पता नहीं था कि 28 गोलियां लगी हुई हैं उनको। और उसके बाद उनको जब बेस हॉस्पिटल ले जाया गया,
There was nobody to who reached that spot and they who tried to take them to the hospital.
नहीं, एयरफोर्स की गाड़ी आ गई थी, वहाँ पे गाड़ी थी एयरफोर्स की और बस तो तब तक पहुँच चुकी थी जब तक ये हादसा हो गया और ये नाच नूच के भाग गए।
You saw Yasin Malik with your own eyes at that point of time?
देखिए जी, यासीन मलिक मेरा चचेरा भाई तो है नहीं जिसको मैं पहचानती थी बचपन से। एक्चुअली मुझे फ्लाइट लेफ्टिनेंट BR शर्मा ने ही ये बात बताई थी और वहाँ के लोगों ने कश्मीरी में, मैं कश्मीरी बेटी हूँ, उन्होंने कहा त्रट पड़ी यासीन मलिक को कि क्योंकि
अभी आप क्या चाहते? Do you want death sentence for Yasin Malik?
सिस्टम से
Do you want death sentence for Yasin?
हाँ जी,
सिस्टम ने आपको बार बार कहीं ना कहीं निराश किया उसके बाद।
बिल्कुल। यासीन मलिक ने तो एक बार मारा था, उसका एजेंडा था इंडियन यूनिफॉर्म को टारगेट। पहले तो वो वैसे जो उसने उत्पात मचाया हुआ था, बाद में उसने इंडियन डिफेंस को टारगेट बनाया, यूनिफॉर्म को कॉल दे रखी थी। तो जिसमें मेरे हस्बैंड और 3 और जवान जो थे वो शहीद हुए हैं। मैं कहती हूँ यासीन मलिक ने तो एक बार मारा, हुकूमतों ने मुझे 32 साल 4 महीने हो गए हैं आज 25 तारीख।
Do you want death sentence for Yasin Malik?
मेरी बात सुनिए, इस वक्त मेरे केस की बात करोगे ना, अगर आप, ये टेरर फंडिंग का केस चल रहा है, आज उसकी सुनवाई है। उसमें हमारे ऑनरेबल जजेस क्या देते, NIA कोर्ट में क्या फैसला देते हैं, इट इज़ अप टू देम। लेकिन मैं कहती हूँ देशद्रोही कोई भी हो, देश को एक कानून बनाना चाहिए, एक कानून बनना चाहिए। तो देशद्रोही जो है उसको देशद्रोह की जो सही सज़ा वो दे देनी चाहिए। और रही मेरे केस की बात, तो मैं तो यही कहूँगी भाई, खून का बदला खून, मेरे केस की।
ट्रायल शुड बी एक्सपेडाइटेड।
उम्मीद जगी है इसकी बात की अब यासीन मलिक या ऐसे ही कई लोगों पे कार्रवाई होगी।
बिल्कुल कार्रवाई तो होनी चाहिए। अगर देखिए कोई भी कानून बनता है, प्रेसिडेंट बनता है, एक को अगर कुछ मिलता है तो सारे खड़े हो जाते हैं। अब एक को इंसाफ मिलेगा तो बाकी चुप बैठेंगे। बाकी भी खड़े होंगे। तो ये देश को देखना है, हमारी हुकूमतों को, हमारी जुडिशरी को, सब कुछ देखना है। मुझे बड़ी शर्म आती है ऐसी बातें सुन के। महात्मा गांधी ने तो अहिंसा परमो धर्मा कहा था, उन्होंने हिंसा नहीं कहा। और उन्होंने लाठी मारने के लिए नहीं उठाई थी, लाठी चलने के लिए उठाई थी। आज मैं आपको कह दूं, मैं सुभाष चंद्र बोस हूँ, जय हिंद की सेना तैयार कर रही हूँ मैं। तो ये सारी जो बातें हैं ना, इन बातों का कोई मतलब नहीं है। कोई गांधीयन कहे, कोई बुद्धा कहे, कोई कुछ कहे, जब जिसकी जो चीज़ भीतर से जाग जाती है। दृश्यम पिक्चर आपने देखी होगी, आप जो दिमाग में दृश्यम बना लेते हैं उस दृश्यम से चलते रहो।
जो पाकिस्तान की तरफ से जो बयान आ रहे हैं यासीन मलिक के समर्थन में, उस पर आप क्या कहेंगे?
भाई उनको अपना देखिए जी, उनके विषय में मैं क्या कह सकती हूँ। हर एक की, क्या हिंदुस्तान क्या पाकिस्तान, जिन जिन की दुकानें चल रही थी, रोजी रोटी चल रही थी, वो आज सारे एक हो गए हुए हैं।
ये आज महबूबा मुफ्ती ने कहा कि फांसी से या
इससे कोई मसला हल नहीं होगा। महबूबा मुफ्ती ने भी यासीन मलिक का समर्थन किया है।
इसको कैसे देखती हैं? महबूबा मुफ्ती ने जो ये कहा कि फांसी से या उम्र कैद से कोई मसला हल नहीं होगा, महबूबा मुफ्ती की स्टेटमेंट को कैसे देखती कि अभी भी कश्मीर के पॉलिटिशियन जो हैं पैट्रनेज दे रहे हैं आतंकवादी यासीन मलिक जैसे आतंकवादियों को? देखिए,
महबूबा मुफ्ती जो हैं वो पॉलिटिशियन हैं और सीएम रह चुकी हैं। उनका अगर पॉलिटिक्स का ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड गवर्नमेंट देखेगी तो सारी बातें गवर्नमेंट को समझ आ जाएंगी कि वो ऐसी बातें क्यों कर रही हैं। उनको ये बातें करनी है।
उनकी स्टेटमेंट से, क्योंकि
मेरी बात सुनिए, मैं आहत इसी बात से हूँ कि 32 साल 4 महीने वो मेरे हस्बैंड को मारने के बाद जी लिया, बस सिंपल।
मैम अब आप क्या चाहते हैं, आप क्या मांग करते हैं?
मैं आज के केस में क्या मांग कर सकती हूँ, मुझे बताइए।
तो
वर्डिक्ट आएगा तो मैं अपनी स्टेटमेंट दूंगी कि मैं क्या इंसाफ हुआ है। वर्डिक्ट आने तो।
निर्मल जी, आपने कहा कि आप डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह को अपना प्रेरणा स्रोत मानते थे, लेकिन जब आपने उनको यासीन मलिक के साथ देखा, उसके साथ हाथ मिलाते हुए देखा, ठहाके लगाते हुए देखा, आपको काफी पीड़ा हुई।
मैं आज भी उनको अपना प्रेरणा स्रोत मानती हूँ। ये बात थोड़ा है कि अगर उन्होंने अपने ऑफिस में किसी दबाव में या किसी, आप मेरे घर में सब लोग आए हो, मैंने आपकी इज्जत की है, आइए जी आज आपने मेरा इंटरव्यू लेना है, लीजिए। इसी तरह जब वो प्राइम मिनिस्टर थे, ना जाने ऐसा कौन सा दबाव था उनके ऊपर कि उनको मिलना भी पड़ा, बात भी करनी पड़ी। ये सारी जो है कुक्ड होती हैं ये सारी चीज़ें। डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह जी बजाते खुद एक बहुत ही नेक खुदा दोस्त इंसान है, उनके लिए मैं कोई भी अपशब्द नहीं कह सकती हूँ। हाँ,
Okay, the police squad has entered the Yasin Malik lockup at the Patiala House Court. The Deputy Commissioner of Police has reached the court premises as well. The sentencing is all set to take place in the next few minutes. Yasin Malik is going to be taken out from his lockup and produced in court, and that's when the sentencing is going to take place. All of this will happen in a manner of the next few minutes. Bomb squads have swept the entire area. Senior police officers have taken stock of the security arrangements. Our editor on the ground is Kamaljeet Sandhu, looking into every aspect of this unfolding story. Kamal, what's the latest? It looks like that sentencing is finally going to happen in the next few minutes, Kamal.
Matram! 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 Shiv, as the countdown for the quantum of punishment begins, there are people who are gathering with tricolour flag. And let's just try and get you an emotion and a word out from here. लाल चौक से कोई रिश्ता है आपका? आप कहाँ से हैं और आज झंडा लेकर आए हैं, कोर्ट में आए हैं, बच्चों के साथ आए हैं, क्या?
मेरा नाम संजीव लाकड़ा है। मैं देश की राजधानी का एक आम नागरिक। जिस तरीके से हमें बचपन से सिखाया, दूध मांगोगे तो खीर देंगे और कश्मीर मांगोगे तो चीर देंगे, कहीं ना कहीं वो दर्द मेरे भी दिल में था। मुझे भी हमेशा लगता था कि क्यों नहीं हमारा ऐसे गद्दार लोगों ने, यासीन मलिक जैसे गद्दार लोगों ने, जैसे 1990 से आज तक घाटी को लगातार तोड़ा है, देश की सेना पर हमला किया है, देश की सेना पर गोली चलाई है, पत्थरबाजी कराई है, हुर्रियत लोगों से जिस तरीके से आतंकवाद फैला है, ऐसा है पहला नतीजा जब देश की राजधानी में सुनवाई हो रही है।
तो किस तरह का नतीजा आप कर रहे हैं? उम्र कैद देख रहे हैं या फिर क्या?
कम से कम फांसी, ताकि ऐसा नासूर देश में पैदा ना हो दोबारा। जितने भी आतंकवाद मूवमेंट को लेकर वैली में जो हादसे होते हैं, उनके जनकों को, उनके लोगों को ये संदेश जाए कि आगे कोई सर ना उठा सके, आतंकवाद का कोई राह ना चुने, कोई युवा ना भटके। केवल और केवल राष्ट्रवाद, देशवाद, इसके अलावा नहीं चलेगा कोई आतंकवाद।
So sentiment is high, and we can give you a 365-degree view. There is a lot of security out here. There is obviously a lot of huge media presence out here. But what is important and significant is that even as Yasin Malik is to be produced, this is going to be very significant. His first conviction, and yes, NI has already sought that he should be given death sentence, the maximum. The plea also being given by the MSQA that it should be minimum of a life sentence. Remember, the emotions have been running high. There has been no closure for Kashmiri Pandit families. This is a case of terror funding, so it has not to do with those particular cases which are going on in Tada, in Jammu. But clearly, the entire country is looking at it. They're looking and monitoring very closely. As the first word really gets out of the conviction has taken place, but it's the quantum of punishment. And this is from where, and you can see it, this is choke-a-block. So all eyes definitely on the sentencing, which is to do with terror funding. Remember, it's 3 decades of terrorism, a low conflict. And remember the way the sort of Pakistani establishment has been giving the statements, right from Shahbaz Sharif to Bilal Bhutto to the likes of the cricketers. So remember, this is something that Pakistan has championed. Remember, several of those people who've been saying that there are stooges in Kashmir who've been running that entire plot. Yasin Malik being the commander of JKLF and has spearheaded terrorism there and then moved on to separatism. So he has taken a plea that he's shunned guns and it has become Gandhian. But will that break any sort of ice or cut any ice as far as that plea is concerned? But definitely order being given, and since it has taken so much time, a detailed order is expected to come out. And yes, Yasin Malik
only a few minutes to go, Kamal, because Yasin Malik is inside the NIA court now. So I'm guessing only a few minutes to go. The operative part of it should be out, hopefully very, very quickly. In the next few minutes, we will have the details of what it's going to be for Yasin Malik. Gaurav Sawant is also with us live. We'll have Ashraf Wani from Srinagar, where there is a security hike that's taken place there. Sunil Ji Bhatt is with the family of the victims of Yasin Malik. So India Today has you covered 360 degrees as we wait for the verdict that's going to be dropping any moment now. Gaurav, in your view, you've tracked not only these terror cases, but also the case pertaining to Yasin Malik. How much is riding on what the sentencing is going to be, Gaurav?
Shiv, Yasin Malik is the big daddy of terror. He's amongst the first batches of terrorists to have gone across the line of control and was trained by Pakistan Army and ISI in 1988-89. He's the one who was crucial in the abduction
Gaurav,
of
apologies for the interruption. I'm coming back to you in just a moment. Just want to show our viewers these live pictures from outside the Patiala House Court. Gaurav, I'm just coming back to you in 30 seconds. Live images of Yasin Malik, we are told, who's now being produced inside the Patiala House NIA court. This is the Patiala House court complex in the national capital, so that our viewers are not confused. The Patiala House court is called Patiala House court, but it is very much in Delhi, the national capital. And there is a lockup in the court premises where Yasin Malik, has been all this while, and he's been taken out from that lockup. And as you can see in these pictures on India Today, first and exclusive, of course, Yasin Malik is in that crowd, being taken inside to be produced inside that court. Go ahead, Gaurav.
So, Shiv, Yasin Malik went to Pakistan-occupied Kashmir for training. He's the one who's alleged to have played a very critical role in the abduction of then Union Home Minister Mufti Mohammad Saeed's daughter, Rubaiya Saeed. Rubaiya Saeed is the sister of the former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Mufti Mohammad Mehbooba Mufti. Shiv, 5 hardcore terrorists were released for the release of Rubaiya Saeed, and that in many ways is seen as the beginning of armed terror in Jammu and Kashmir. He is alleged to have played a very crucial role in the murder of Lassa Kaul. The killings of Kashmiri Pandits started after that. like Sunilji Bhatt was reporting,
Yes.
the murder, the brutal murder of 4 unarmed Indian Air Force personnel in Srinagar. Yasin Malik is alleged to be involved in those cases, and charges have been framed against him in both the Rubaiya Saeed and in the IEF officer's case. So he's the big daddy of terror in Kashmir. He may call himself a Gandhian, shunning the gun, but this case, where the quantum of sentences to be pronounced moments from now, this terrorist was funding terror, taking money from Pakistan, from Hafiz Saeed.
Yes.
He's confessed he took money from Hafiz Saeed. He's confessed he's taken money from Sayyid Salahuddin. He's confessed after the killing of Burhan Wani. He was a part of that group that organized terror and arson, including burning down schools in the Kashmir Valley so
Absolutely.
that stone pelters would be available. So here is a man who's finally being sentenced in that terror financing case.
That terror financing case is just one of many cases against him. He has pleaded, he has not pleaded against the cases. He has not contested any of the charges against him of terrorism, waging war against the government. Live pictures on your screen, ladies and gentlemen. Those are live pictures on your screen right now of Yasin Malik being taken out of the lockup, being escorted by the police and being produced inside the NIA court. That's what those pictures you're looking at right now are. Please don't be concerned, viewer. India Today is cleared to show such footage, so there is no security breach in what we're showing you. In case you have any concerns of that kind, I can assure you, India Today's Kamaljeet Sandhu is on the ground. She's speaking to her sources. These are pictures coming in from the Patiala House Court. Yasin Malik, and I'm going to have pictures of him being escorted through a corridor in just 30 seconds from now as well. The first pictures you will see today of the man who is inside the NIA court right now, and he's about to face his fate. There are only two real possibilities. Either he's going to face the death sentence, which is what the investigators want in this 2017 terror funding case, or he's going to face a life sentence. These are pictures that Kamaljeet is bringing to us from outside the court premises right now. Here you have images. Take a look at these images now. You're not going to see them anywhere else. Look very closely at these images, ladies and gentlemen, and you will spot Yasin Malik. There he is. There is Yasin Malik there in the shirt, holding documents as he walks. He's wearing glasses. There you have it. The first pictures of terrorist Yasin Malik being taken out from the lockup and being walked, escorted by police. Heavy security, obviously, because this is a Pakistan-funded terrorist, as Gaurav said, the big daddy of Pak terror. Here he is being produced inside the court. There is Yasin Malik. There he is among the khaki-clad police escorting him towards the NIA courtroom. The judge is yet to arrive. Yasin Malik is inside the courtroom. The judge is on his way. He's going to be there very shortly. Kamal, talk us through these images. Very, very heavy security escorting Yasin Malik as we're seeing in these pictures. He's now inside the NIA court. Kamal.
Well, big announcement expected at any point of time. We are outside the court and we'll just tell you how it is. The gates have now been locked and heavy security has been deployed all along till the time the verdict is announced. And before that, heavy barricading being done, extra deployment has been done. The DCP himself is present here. So what is also very clear is that as far as security is concerned, this is choke-a-block security arrangements being done here. But more importantly is the verdict and the conviction which has been happening. This point of time, we're looking at quantum of punishment. The NIA taking a plea of maximum, which is the death penalty. And remember, there have been several who have waited for decades for justice to happen. That has not come around. And for the first time after conviction, we will hear that sort of pronouncement take place. And yes, either he's looking at a life imprisonment or, for that matter, a death sentence. And remember, this is only the first channel. There he can appeal to the High Court and then finally to the Supreme Court. But meanwhile, it does seem that the law is finally closing in on the leader, especially after 3 decades of terrorism. And even when he became a separatist leader, giving up guns, remember, there was a spate of time where there were hartal, there was strikes happening time again. Obviously, there were terror attacks which happened, and this is where the leads have been all stitched together by the NIA. Interestingly and ironically, Digvijay Arvind Negi, who was the IO in the case, was, however, arrested in another case of Khurram Parvez, saying that he had passed on some sensitive information. But as far as the case is concerned, this was a meticulously put together case by the NIA. And this is where they said that post 2016, once Burhan Wani was killed, the HM commander, that is where there was incessant number of stone pelting cases done in order to keep the valley on the boil. And we've seen how businessmen came together for funding. There was funds coming in from Pakistan. There was Zahur Watali, there was Fantoush, there was the other leaders including Shabir Shah. So finally, the law is closing in on Yasin Malik. The others will obviously be put through the same
Okay, Kamal, I'm just coming back to you in a moment, in just a few seconds. We've got pictures. We've got, we've got a developing situation now coming in from Srinagar, which is, the city where Yasin Malik's residence is. His family still lives there. We're looking at pictures of tear gas. There's tear gas apparently being fired in some parts of Srinagar. That's been captured on India Today's cameras. You can see some policemen, you can see some photographers of the local media as well taking pictures of tear gas being fired. Gaurav, situation obviously tense. The Unified Command and the security forces in Srinagar will definitely not be taking any chances, because there is the possibility, as we saw earlier as well, of dharnas and crowds forming, because what happens inside that NIA court in Delhi in many ways could have a ripple effect in Srinagar. And that's what we're probably seeing right now as well, or the beginnings of it, Gaurav.
Shiv, you're spot on. This is the Maisuma area of Srinagar. Maisuma is in the heart of Srinagar, and this is where Yasin Malik comes from. This is actually his stronghold. In fact, members of his family were reading the Holy Quran with their, from their house window. As a large crowd assembled there, they were asked to disperse. When they did not disperse, we are told that the police dispersed them, and we are looking at these images of tear gas shells being fired in the Maisuma area of Srinagar. Police officers on ground say the situation is well and truly under control. Troublemakers have been warned. If they continue to peddle Pakistan's agenda in Kashmir, then action will be taken against them. And the fact that Yasin Malik has been convicted, the fact that action is being taken against him, quantum of sentence will be announced soon. And there are other terror supporters and the enabling system. As Kamaljeet Kaur Sandhu was just telling us, the terror financing network, and it's very difficult to crack. But whether it's the Income Tax Department, the Enforcement Directorate, the NIA, there are parallel investigations that are going on, and terror enablers are also facing the strong arm of the law, where cases are being filed against those who provide funding for stone pelters and armed terrorists, Shiv.
Okay, look at those pictures. Gaurav, coming back to you. Look at those pictures from inside the NIA court right now, the corridor from the lockup to the actual courtroom. These are the first pictures that India Today is getting to you of Yasin Malik being escorted by security forces and the police and being taken straight to the courtroom. He's inside the courtroom. He's been given a chair to sit down, and now the wait is on for the judge who will deliver the verdict. Is it going to be death? Is it going to be life? We are waiting to see what happens. Sunil Ji Bhatt is our man on the ground in Jammu. Remember, there are cases against Yasin Malik in Jammu as well. Those charges have been framed separately, but important to remind our viewers that the sentencing that's happening today pertains to a 2017 terror funding case that has been investigated by the National Investigation Agency, or the NIA. Sunil Ji, I don't know if you can see these images, but these images of Yasin Malik being escorted now through a corridor at the NIA court tear gas shells being fired in Srinagar. Things could get tense depending on what happens. What are you hearing from Jammu, Sunil?
Absolutely, Shiv. There is already, some kind of protest happening in the Kashmir Valley, and as you said, that tear gas shelling, has taken place. The security forces don't want to take any chances, and that is why they had beefed up security already in sensitive localities of Srinagar, particularly Maisuma, which is the stronghold of Yasin Malik. Yasin Malik's residence is in Maisuma locality of Srinagar, but the security agencies are holding deliberations. That's what our sources are saying, and they could take some more measures as far as preventing any untoward incident is concerned, because in the previously also when terrorist Afzal Guru was hanged, there was prior security measures that were taken, and in this case also security measures have been taken, but the security agencies want to take some more steps, and that's why deliberations are taking place within the security agencies. But Shiv, as I said, that this is not an ordinary court judgment. It's going to have huge implications, because Yasin Malik has been a blue-eyed boy of the civil society of the country as well as of Pakistan. Pakistan has already, stepped up campaign. If we go to the social media, to Twitter, we see that how Pakistani politicians, Pakistani, civil society people, they have been, coming out in support of Yasin Malik, and Pakistan Prime Minister and Pakistan former Prime Minister have even gone on to say that international community must take note of this. And this was an issue which even, Shiv, echoed in the Parliament of Britain. But that there in British Parliament, the minister said that this case pertains to a court in India, and they can't, interfere in that. But they said they are closely monitoring this case. So, Shiv, it's going to have huge implications. But for the families of the victims, it is some kind of relief. They have been, crying for justice for last 30 years.
I hope so.
This man, Yasin Malik, got a long rope from the security agencies. In fact, he was engaged. He was engaged by the government. He was engaged by the agency in track 2, track 3 diplomacy in order to buy temporary peace. But now, time is up for Yasin Malik. D-Day has arrived.
Time is up. Time is up. I hope time is up. The victims of Yasin Malik's terror, which include as recently as yesterday, Saifullah Qadri, policeman, and his daughter who was shot in the arm, Safa, who we've been campaigning for here on India Today. All of these people, their faces, their families, their suffering is linked to the fate of this man on your screen. Because if India does not punish Yasin Malik, if a precedent is not set today, it means that terror can be normalized, terror can be mainstreamed, terror can give speeches and bhashans, terror can be part of civil society, terror can be embraced. It can be embraced in this country and forgiven. That is the message that will actually go out. Remember, on India Today, we do not second guess the role of our courts. The court will decide what happens. But in the court of public opinion, Yasin Malik is beyond just being a terrorist. He's a man who is not contesting these charges. The charges against him are beyond proof. They don't need to be proven. He's been convicted as part of due process in this country. And as you look at these live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, of Yasin Malik being escorted by the very sorts of policemen that he and his outfits have butchered and killed, including 2 between yesterday and today. It's an ironic image. 2 constables have been killed in the last 24 hours in Kashmir between Srinagar and Baramulla. And it is police constables like those who've been butchered by Pakistan-sponsored terror who now have no choice but to escort this murderer from the jail cell to the courtroom where he will meet his fate. There is stone pelting taking place in the Kashmir Valley right now, because that is, what does that tell you? That tells you that Pakistan's tentacles to foment tension keep, the lives of ordinary Kashmiris always on tenterhooks. They can never really catch a break. That is the brand of life that Yasin Malik has poisoned the Kashmir Valley with, and that is what his legacy is. So even as you watch the smoke from those tear gas grenades landing there, look at the pictures. Those pictures on the left-hand side, that's the man who's responsible for this kind of necessary response by India's security forces. Gaurav Sawant continues to be with me. Sunil ji continues to be with me, but I'm going straight back to Kamaljeet once again, because she's on the ground at the NIA court, the Patiala House Court premises in Delhi, where the proceedings are about to begin any moment now. Kamal, are you hearing anything about why the judge hasn't arrived just yet? Are there some procedural delays? This entire proceeding has been delayed by almost 3 hours now.
Well, this is going to be a very detailed order, and obviously this is going to take time. Well, it's taken 3 decades for all you know. But yes, this is a more recent case of 2017 of terror funding, where this has been stitched up together by NIA, going from right from the beginning till the time the India Today had done that particular sting operation, after which investigation was done. The case was handed over to NIA. For now, it's taken almost 5 years or so for this entire case to be heard and the conviction to take place. Today, it's all about quantum of sentencing. But remember, as far as the Kashmiri Pandits are concerned, who've been at the receiving end and the wrath of terrorism, and this is where several of those people may be looking at the closure. But remember, there is going to be a High Court and Supreme Court pleas could be made there as well. But today is going to be much more symbolic in that particular sense, because many would say that earlier it had been a sort of fixed match that, a stone pelting happened or a Hartal calendar would be given. There would be arrest, and then these leaders would be let off after several days. But this is the first time that we're looking at a heavy-duty conviction of that side. The NIA has already said we're looking at a death sentence because, remember, there has been evidence and there has now been confession as far as Section 16, 17, 18, as well as Section 20 is concerned of the UAPA, and waging war, which is 120 IPC. That is now going to be very significant. Let me just show you. This is the family court. This is where Yasin Malik went in. We do expect him to be led from this particular way out. The security has been beefed up around here. So if you just turn around, there is a paramilitary force which has been deployed. We see a lot of SSB Jawans, the Delhi police out here. But clearly, in the twists and turns that we've seen in the case, Yasin Malik, just few months before 5th August 2019, was arrested. At that point of time, in a dramatic turn of events, when he was being taken away, he had tried to push away the cops and hit his head against the wall, trying to show that there was atrocity being done on him. Again, there were certain pleas made by his family that he was not being treated well. But that beside, the evidence has finally nailed him down. This is going to be an important conviction, not just in terror funding, but we are also looking at subsequent cases, the Tada court cases, the Rubaiya Khan cases, as well as the cases of the 4 IF officers who were martyred, a direct role of Yasin Malik, the JKLF commander, at that point of time, one of the biggest terror organizations. So clearly, this at one point of time, the sort of pressure which has now been sustained by the government and the agencies, especially on separatist groups. But this will come down and boil down to the conviction and the larger messaging for the separatist organizations. Many would say this is the lowest part as far as the tenure is concerned, but clearly it is also about justice. It may be justice delayed, but it may not be justice denied. So we're looking at the first step, quantum of punishment, and then obviously the legal cases. There could be a challenge in the High Court and finally in the Supreme Court. But clearly, the law closing in on Yasin Malik, who has escaped the clutches of law for very, very long.
There are courts of appeal, but the fact is this is an extremely grave case that is under judgment today. Yasin Malik has already been convicted, and the quantum of punishment, the sentencing is going to take place right now, viewer, where he faces, in all likelihood, either a life term or the death sentence, which is, the extreme case that the NIA is hoping for at this point of time. The charges have not been contested, and therefore, in many eyes, this is an open and shut case, but there are sensitivities involved, as can be seen by what's happening in Srinagar. Tear gas is having to be fired at stone pelters in the Maisuma area of Srinagar, which is where Yasin Malik and his residents are. But in the Patiala House Court is when things will be taking place at this point of time. Just the next few minutes, the sentencing will take place. Yasin Malik is inside. Obviously, we can't show you what's happening inside court, but he's sitting on a chair. There are other persons also inside the court right now. And all eyes are on the judge, who will be arriving in court in just a few minutes to read out the order. As Kamaljeet just pointed out, it is expected to be a very detailed order. There are many charges against Yasin Malik, but this particular case pertains to terror funding. It's a case that goes back to 2017. Yasin Malik was convicted in this case only a few days ago. He has not contested any of the charges, but we're going to take this story forward because India today has the most number of images from inside the Patiala House Court, and as you can see on your right, we are deployed in Srinagar as well as in Jammu to bring you what's happening there. This is a story which has multiple facets and the possibility of impact in Srinagar, in Jammu, most certainly in Pakistan, where it's already had an impact with persons like the Pakistan Prime Minister, star cricketer Shahid Afridi and others coming to the aid of their number one jihadi asset, Yasin Malik. Pooja and Gaurav take forward our coverage, India Today, on Yasin Malik, the sentencing taking place in just a few minutes from now. Over to you, Pooja.
Thank you so much, Shiv. What a historic day, and our non-stop coverage continues on the Yasin Malik conviction and the quantum of sentence. Remember, this is a terror funding case, but for terrorist Yasin Malik, who's accused of massive crimes in Kashmir, repercussions of that violence still being felt until 24 hours ago when a cop was killed in front of his daughter. We are tracking minute-by-minute updates. India Today, the only channel getting you not only updates from the court in Delhi, but also from Kashmir, where in Mysoma, there are protests and tear gas shelling that are on. And I'm going to take you through, in the next 1 hour, exactly what you need to know about this case, about where the status is, and of course we are waiting for the NIA court to finally pronounce the verdict on what happens and what next for Yasin Malik. Will it be death penalty or will it be life term? Because remember, either way, this is a big day. For the victims who have suffered all these years, this is a start when it comes to what Yasin Malik has been accused of. This could just be the beginning, remember. This is a terror funding case, but it will also pertain to many other cases. I'll be soon joined by Gaurav Sawant as well on this telecast, going across also first to Sunil Ji Bhatt on the ground. Because Sunil, you have been talking to one of the most significant victims of Kashmir, the wife of squadron leader Ravi Khanna. Nirmal Khanna has been such a brave woman. And she's been not only restarting her life, but is clearly watching the proceedings today. Sunil, over to you.
Well, Pooja, I am at the residence of Nirmal Khanna, wife of late squadron leader Ravi Khanna, and I have been talking to her, and she has been saying that she wants death penalty for Yasin Malik and nothing less than that. It has been a long legal battle for the families of the victims. But Pooja, one needs to understand that this case pertains to a terror funding case from 2017, and as far as the cases of the Air Force personal killing case are concerned, they are still pending in Jammu's Tada court. Hearing is on and trial is on there. What the families of the victims now want is that this trial should be expedited at the Tada court also. But what has happened in Delhi's NIA court has come as a ray of hope for the families of the victims. They say that they now are quite hopeful that Yasin Malik will be brought to justice. I am at the residence of squadron leader Ravi Khanna here in Jammu, and I have with me his wife Nirmal Khanna. Squadron leader, remember, was one of those 4 Air Force officers who attained martyrdom in a terror attack which was carried out by Yasin Malik and his terror associates. We will try and get a word from Nirmal Khanna ji. Nirmal ji, मुझे पता है कि आपने कहा कि अभी आप वर्डिक्ट पर कुछ नहीं कहेंगे, अभी वो अवेटेड है, लेकिन उस दिन क्या हुआ जिस दिन यासिन मलिक ने वो आतंकी हमला किया श्रीनगर के रावलपुरा में?
ये बात तो मेरा ख्याल पिछले 32 साल से सन 2019 से लेके अभी तक तो मैंने कोई 1000 बार ये बात बताई है कि एयरफोर्स की जो कोच है अपने प्रेस्क्राइब्ड बस स्टैंड पे आती है, ऑफिसर्स की अलग और एयरमैन की अलग। एयरमैन की बरजला में आई थी और रावलपुरा में इन ऑफिसर्स की। बरजला में कोई 20 लोग थे जिनमें से 3 जवान शहीद हो गए थे और 17 जख्मी हो गए थे। और आगे वो जब रावलपुरा में आए हैं तो एक फ्लाइट लेफ्टिनेंट BR शर्मा और मेरे हस्बैंड खड़े थे, स्क्वाड्रन लीडर रवि खन्ना। तो अचानक यासीन मलिक हीरो होंडा पे एक और एसोसिएट के साथ आता है और नटीपुरा का रास्ता पूछता है। वो नटीपुरा का रास्ता बता रहे हैं तो ये उनके एब्डोमेन पे गोली मार देता है। उनके हाथ में ब्रीफकेस था, उन्होंने उसका निशाना ख़राब किया, उसकी गन उन्होंने हवा में ऊपर कर दी, स्कफल किया, उसकी गन खाली कर दी। और साथ ही BR शर्मा, उनको पता था मेरा एक और साथी है, वो कहीं मारे ना जाए हम, उन्होंने उसको आवाज़ दी शर्मा सेव योर सेल्फ। और एक बहुत बड़ा पेड़ था पास में उधर, उन्होंने शर्मा साहब उसके पीछे चले गए और खन्ना को जब उसकी पीठ सड़क की तरफ हो गई तो पीछे से इसका जो एसोसिएट था, इन लोगों ने उनको 27 गोलियां और मारी पीठ पे, टोटल 28 गोलियां लगी।
28 bullets were pumped into his body.
हाँ जी। तो बाद में जब मैंने अपने एटिक से देखा कि बड़ी पटाखों जैसी आवाज़ आ रही है, देखूं तो सही, तो देखा कि बड़े लोग गन्स हाथ में उठाए हुए, घेरा बनाए हुए, हा हुल्लड़ करके, दे वर सो थ्रिल्ड कि जैसे एज इफ दे हैव डन समथिंग,
They were celebrating his killing.
दे वर सेलिब्रेटिंग कि हमने यूनिफॉर्म को टारगेट कर दिया है, चाहे कर्फ्यू है चाहे कुछ है। और उसके बाद मेरे हस्बैंड को जब हम बेस हॉस्पिटल लेके गए हैं तो देयर ही वाज डिक्लेयर्ड। और
तो निर्मल जी, महबूबा मुफ्ती PDP की मुखिया और जम्मू कश्मीर की पूर्व मुख्यमंत्री, वो कह रही है कि इससे क्या हासिल होगा यासिन मलिक को सज़ा देके, जबकि देखिए कितनी विडंबना है कि उनकी जो बहन है रुबिया सईद, उसका भी अपहरण यासिन मलिक ने ही किया।
नहीं तो अगर आपको ये लगता है कि उनको दुख होना चाहिए कि यासीन मलिक ने अपहरण मेरी बहन का किया, जो अभी तक कलंक लगा हुआ है और बदनामी है, एक होम मिनिस्टर के माथे पे दाग है कि उसने उसके एवज में इतने लोग छुड़वा लिए और फिर हिंदुस्तान की क्रीम को एलिमिनेट करा दिया, नालियों में खून बहा दिया, उनको बजाय अगर शर्मिंदगी हो या बुरा लगता हो तो ये ऐसी बात कहेंगी। ये सब मिली भगत है, ये सब उनका रिश्तेदार है, उनका क्या चचेरा मबेरा जो भी है भाई होगा। और यही एक, और ये सब किसी साजिश के तहत हुआ था उस टाइम। ऐसे कैसे हो सकता होम मिनिस्टर की बेटी एक कॉमन मेटाडोर से अबडक्ट हो जाती है?
Do you feel that it was staged?
बिल्कुल पक्का। मुझे क्या लगता है, सारी दुनिया को लगता है।
So there was a fixed match between the home minister and the terrorist. That's what you are trying to say?
होम मिनिस्टर साहब ही बताएंगे, जो उनको ऊपर जाके पूछना चाहेगा जाके उनको बता देंगे वो। मैं यहाँ पर ये बात क्या कह सकती हूँ इस बारे में।
बट निर्मल जी, अभी पाकिस्तान से जिस प्रकार से बयानबाजी आ रही है, चाहे वेदर इट्स द प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफ पाकिस्तान शहबाज शरीफ और फॉर्मर प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफ पाकिस्तान इमरान खान और इवन सेलिब्रिटीज ऑफ पाकिस्तान, दे हैव कम आउट इन ओपन सपोर्ट ऑफ यासिन मलिक एंड दे आर क्लेमिंग दैट ही हैज बीन फैब्रिकेटेड, ही हैज बीन फ्रेम्ड इन फैब्रिकेटेड केसेस। व्हाट डू यू हैव टू से एज फार एज पाकिस्तान इज कंसर्न?
मैं उनके विषय में क्या कहूँ, देखो ये उनका ही एक किस्म का स्टेज उन्होंने बनाई थी ना। तो अगर एक बंदे को उन्होंने पूरा ड्रामा उसके हाथ में दे दिया और उसने भी बेस्ट रोल अदा करके दिया है उनको, तो नेचुरली अब उन्होंने उसके सपोर्ट में खड़ा तो होना है।
तो निर्मल जी, अभी आप क्या चाहती हैं, किस अदालत की तरफ से सजाए मौत हो यासिन मलिक के लिए?
देखिए जी, मैं एक बार नहीं, हर बार मुझे आप बेहोशी में पूछो, होश में पूछो, इंजेक्शन लगा के पूछो, मैं हर बार एक ही बात, सच्ची बात, अपने ज़मीर की बात कहूँगी। ये टेरर फंडिंग का केस है, ये देश को देखना है, देश की एजेंसीज को देखना है कि देशद्रोह के लिए कौन सा प्रेसिडेंट बनाया जाए जो आने वाली जनरेशन्स को भी एक लाउड मैसेज दिया जाए। ये देश को देखना है, मेरा कोई काम नहीं है इसमें।
Do you feel betrayed by the system?
So far my case is concerned, my husband's case is concerned, 32 साल 4 महीने से मैं तो मुंह उठा के देख रही हूँ, वो 32 साल 4 महीने ज़्यादा जी लिया। तो क्या आज मैं हूँ तो मेरे हस्बैंड भी शायद मेरे साथ होते, नेचुरल डेथ होती तो ठीक है। ऊपर वाला, हम मरने के लिए आए हैं यहाँ पर इस प्लेनेट पे, मरना है, पैदा होना है, मरना है, पैदा होना है। लेकिन जो लोगों ने एक ही बार मरना है तो उनको मालिक रास्ते पे भी सीधे चलाता है। यासीन मलिक के लिए मैं और कुछ नहीं कहना चाहती, मैं कहती हूँ उसको मुबारक है। अगर मेरे केस में, मेरे हस्बैंड के खून के केस में, उन 3 शहीदों के जो एयरफोर्स के जवान शहीद हुए हैं उनके केस में, और जो जितने इनोसेंट लोग अपने घर में हाथ उठाए उसकी बारगाह में बैठे हुए हैं, इसको मुबारक है। अगर इसको अपने किए की सज़ा मिल जाती है और इसको ईश्वर माफ़ कर देता है तो इसके जैसा भी मुबारक बंदा कौन होगा। खून की सज़ा, खून अगर हो तो आइंदा और भी हमारी जनरेशंस में ये मैसेज जाता है कि हमें आउटला होके कोई काम नहीं करना।
तो निर्मल जी, do you feel betrayed by the system that all these 30 years, you were fighting, a lone battle against the system, against terrorism. So do you think that the successive governments were not serious as far as, taking these cases to logical conclusion is concerned?
सुनील जी, आपने मेरे से पूछा है 32 साल 4 महीने में, मैं आपको बता रही हूँ कि आज 25 मई है ना, तो ये 25 जनवरी 1990 को हुआ था। तब से ये मैं इंतज़ार में बैठी हुई हूँ। यासीन मलिक ने तो उस दिन स्क्वाड्रन लीडर खन्ना और 3 दूसरों को एक ही बार मारा था। उन लड़कियों ने मुझे ज्वाइन भी नहीं किया। किसी की 2 महीने की शादी थी, 3 महीने की थी, किसी की बच्ची 2-4 महीने की थी, किसी ने घर में ही शादी कर ली, किसी ने रिश्तेदारों में कर ली। उन लोगों ने कहा कि हमें कुछ नहीं करना। मैंने आई हैव फॉट माई केस माई सेल्फ, और मुझे पेंशन केस भी कोर्ट में जाके लेना पड़ा। क्या हुक्म, आप मुझसे ये बात पूछ रहे हो, आज मैं आपके माध्यम से कहती हूँ, ज़रा सोचिए, एक फौजी शहीद की बीवी को कोर्ट में जाके अपनी पेंशन क्यों लेनी पड़े, जबकि ये उसको सारा काम, ये डिफेंस मिनिस्ट्री का काम है।
That you had to even knock the door of the judiciary for getting
How
pension.
can one not salute,
4.5 साल I have
not support
from
this brave woman who you are listening to on the channel right now? 32 years this woman has been fighting legally, and Gaurav Sawant now joins me on this special telecast. Gaurav, what a significant day today as we go to the court. Yasin Malik's verdict is set to be pronounced from a time, remember Gaurav, when Yasin Malik, the terrorist, thought he's got away easily. He's got away from his killings and crimes. Over to you, Gaurav.
For decades, he got away with murder and terror, but finally the law is catching up with this big daddy of terror. Remember, he is one of the first terrorists who went across the line of control to Pakistan-occupied Kashmir for training. He was involved in a series of murders in Jammu and Kashmir, including of Kashmiri Pandits, the abduction of Rubaiya Saeed, the daughter of then Union Home Minister of India, Mufti Mohammad Saeed, and the killing of these 4 Indian Air Force personnel. But those trials are being carried out separately. This is a very crucial case of terror financing. And I want to bring in Kamaljeet Kaur Sandhu into our conversation, Pooja, because Kamal, this terrorist may claim to be a Gandhian, may have abandoned his gun, but he was actually preparing future generations of terrorists and stone pelters with funds arranged from Pakistan, something he's now confessed to.
It's not just about days and years, it's about 3 decades of terrorism. And this is where Yasin Malik has been a very important player, from being a commander of JKLF to going to Pakistan and being with Hafiz Saeed. Remember, he's been very important because what NIA says and the investigation and the charge sheet very clearly points out is about how the terror funding was being used to actually have a spell of trouble in Kashmir Valley, right from Hartal calendars to months and months we saw of dark times there as far as Kashmir is concerned. This is where the funds were used to channel terror activities. He's been charged under Section 16, 17, 18, 20 of the UAPA, and also very clearly when it comes to Section 120B of the IPC, which is waging war against the country. And under this section is where the NIA actually asked for a death sentence. This point of time, Yasin Malik has taken plea that if he was somebody who shunned violence and he became a Gandhian in terms of principles, why did the 7 prime ministers of the country really meet him? There was a delegation of the Hurriyat conference which met the prime ministers. So this is where he's taken a plea and has asked the judge to give a fair judgment of sorts. But clearly he comes with a lot of baggage. The baggage has terror activities. There are cases not just of kidnapping of Rubaiya Saeed, as you were mentioning, but also the 4 Air Force personnel. There have been cases where JKLF has been involved in direct terror activities, and this has gone on for several decades. The other part was whether there was some sort of fixed match, how were they free for so long. The final part is the law finally closing in on Yasin Malik. Now we are looking at a judgment, a quantum of sentence coming in. But remember, they can always have a plea in High Court as well as the Supreme Court, so it has to go through. But today, it may not come as a closure to several of those who are looking at the first possible conviction of Yasin Malik, not just as a terrorist, but also as a separatist leader. He spent several years and being part of that, and whether it's Zahoor Vitali, whether it is the likes of Shabir Shah, the others who've been involved, there has been this entire networking, and that is why even Hafiz Saeed as well as Saeed Salahuddin, and let me just try and get you a sentiment out here. This is a small family which has come in here, getting a flag. आप लोग यहाँ पर आए हैं, कश्मीर से आपका कोई नाता नहीं, पंडित भी नहीं है आप, लेकिन आज अगर आप आए हैं, किस तरह की उम्मीद से आए?
देखो, आज मेरा कश्मीर से रिश्ता है, मेरे भारत का ताज है, वो धरती का स्वर्ग है। इस देश के गद्दार पाकिस्तानी प्रस्ती एजेंट यासीन मलिक ने जिस तरीके से घाटी को लाल करके छोड़ा है, आज उसकी फांसी की सजा की अपील करने के लिए माननीय सर्वोच्च न्यायालय और पटियाला हाउस कोर्ट के बाहर यही प्रदर्शन करने चाहते हैं। आम नागरिक होने के नाते हमारा एक कर्तव्य बनता है।
बच्चे से बात करते हैं, आप यहाँ पर आए हैं, आपको केस के बारे में क्या पता है?
यासीन मलिक ने उस छोटी बच्ची को क्यों मारा?
So the sentiments are high. There may not be a direct correlation with Kashmir, but people do have sentiments. They've seen what has really happened in 3 decades.
I think people have woken up. For years, there was this deliberate attempt by Yasin Malik and his supporters to play it down. But people have woken up, and now in just a short while, Gaurav, judge is all set to read out the sentence.
Life or death for Yasin Malik, we'll know moments from now. He stands convicted of terror financing in a 2016-17 terror funding case. This is extremely critical. The learned judge is now reading out the sentence in the special NIA court in Patiala House. Here is a man who's confessed he took funds from Pakistan. He took funds from Hafiz Muhammad Saeed and Sayyid Salahuddin and prepared Pooja, the next generation of stone pelters after terrorist Burhan Wani was killed. Very, very crucial verdict expected moments from now.
Absolutely, and it's important to understand that apart from the funding of terror, there are clear charges of waging a war against nation. Anti-India activities that have been charged against Yasin Malik. Of course, the victims will tell you that he has committed much more heinous crimes. Nevertheless, right now, Gaurav, over to you. We have the big verdict coming in. Life imprisonment for terrorist Yasin Malik.
It's a big verdict. Yasin Malik will spend his entire life in jail for terror funding. Big verdict coming first here on India Today. Yasin Malik has been sentenced to a life in prison for terror financing in 2016-17.
Raising funds for terrorists, indulging in act of terror, conspiracy to commit act of terror, links to terror group, anti-India activities, all these 5 charges at least, found guilty. He did not contest, tried to put forth his representation. Nevertheless, life imprisonment has come from the NIA court. Remember, this is just the beginning of the face of terror you see on your screens right now. He tried to get away for as long as possible, tried to become a hero, tried to reach out to as many supporters. Today, Yasin Malik stands isolated. Life imprisonment has been announced, so the much-awaited verdict has come from the court, the NIA court in Delhi. Remember, this is only the start. For many years, there was a demand coming in for death penalty, but now, Nirmal Khanna, the wife, the brave wife of squadron leader Ravi Khanna, who was shot dead outside his house, is speaking. Let's listen.
बुद्धि के आधार पर, तथ्यों के आधार पर जो भी उसको सजा दी है, मैं उसको ऑनर करती हूँ, क्योंकि दे नो बेटर देन मी कि इस केस में कौन सी सजा देनी चाहिए. हो सकता है लाइफ इम्प्रिजनमेंट के दौरान ही उनको कई ऐसी चीज़ें और चाहिए हैं जो वो पता लगाते रहेंगे. मेरी बुद्धि तो इतनी बात कहती है कि अभी हुकूमतों ने अपना काम करना है.
Do you think that now the cases, other cases that are pending against Yasin Malik, like the killing of the Air Force personnel and Rubia Saeed kidnapping case, those cases will be expedited and Yasin Malik will be brought to justice? Do you feel that in those cases he will get death sentence?
I'm 100% sure that justice will be given to me. People say justice delayed, justice denied. But I don't agree on this because I had been denied my legitimate right of getting my pension, my husband's pension, when Naga Mizo militants were rehabilitated in this country. But defense forces were denied their legitimate right. I fought my case, and with the grace of Almighty God, I got that case. Now, that is a precedent of India, an officer going to his office en route to his office or while coming from office. If any untoward incident occurs on the way, the deceased family will be given last pay drawn till death, even after remarriage on reduced pay scale. So, I believe I am given this justice. So, I am drawing my husband's pension on liberalized pensionary award. Or after that, my husband is given that honor of this National War Memorial in present government's regime.
So are you satisfied with the verdict in this case? Are you satisfied?
For my case, I am again, time and again, I am requesting time and again, I am requesting that in my case, what I want with loud voice, I can say, I can claim that there should be the same.
2 life imprisonments have been given, and besides that 10 years rigorous imprisonment in 10 offences, besides monetary penalty, and all the punishments will run concurrently.
Okay, so that's the latest.
Death sentence was sought, but a life imprisonment has been given.
Death has been declined. Death has been declined.
Can you tell us in detail as to what really?
No, I have not read the order. You will get the entire detailed order that court will justify what court has considered, what are the circumstances, whatever has been considered, that will get
what
in the detailed order.
What is the final quantum of punishment besides
2 life imprisonments and 5-10 years, all to run concurrently. 1 life means everything, entire life.
यानी दोनों जो उम्र कैद, 2 मामलों में जो उम्र कैद की सजा हुई है साथ चलेगी, ये कोर्ट ने साथ किया है। अच्छा, कितना जुर्माना किया गया है?
10 लाख है और 10,000, 5,000, सब में अलग अलग है।
कुल मिलाकर के कितना जुर्माना है?
ये जोड़ा नहीं मैंने, वो जोड़ा नहीं मैंने।
अच्छा, जज साहब ने क्या फैसले में की जो ये निष्कर्ष निकाला है कि उम्र कैद की सजा है, इसका आधार भी बताया है कुछ ऑपरेटिव पार्ट जो पढ़ा गया?
नहीं, उन्होंने प्लीड गिल्टी किया था, तो सेंटेंसिंग है, आज कोई जजमेंट नहीं हुई है, सेंटेंसिंग पे ऑर्डर हुआ है। ये सिर्फ सेंटेंसिंग है।
तो जो उम्र कैद की सजा हुई है 121 के तहत हुई है और दूसरा कौन सा सेक्शन?
121 और दूसरा शायद 17 है, अभी ऑर्डर में आएगा।
अच्छा, जो यूएपीए का जो सेक्शन है। ओके, ठीक।
सर, एक बार अपना पूरा नाम बता दीजिए।
उमेश शर्मा, एडवोकेट हूँ मैं। अभी सेंटेंसिंग पे ऑर्डर हुआ है, अभी जज साहब ने प्रोनाउंस किया है, 2 लाइफ सेंटेंसिंग है और 10 ईयर्स की 5 पनिशमेंट है इनकी।
जुर्माने को लेकर
जुर्माना 10 लाख रुपए है, 10,000 है।
और what he was told about all the consequences which he was supposed to face once he plead guilty, and all the things were told to him, and today now the matter has been decided and he is sentenced for 120B. He has been punished with 10 years and 10,000 fine. For 121 IPC he is punished with life imprisonment and 10,000 fine. 121A IPC 10 years with 10,000 fine. 13 UAPA read with 120B IPC 5-year fine. 5 year 5,000 fine. 15 UAPA punishment under 16 UAPA 10 years 10,000 fine. 17 UAPA life 10 lakh fine. 18 UAPA 10 years 10,000 fine. 38 UAPA 5 years 5,000 fine. 39 UAPA 5 year 5,000 fine. Section 20 UAPA 10 year 10,000 fine. Anything else you people want to ask?
Questions?
Any questions from your side?
कोई क्वेश्चन पूछेगा?
सर, इस तरफ आएंगे रिपोर्टर सर। I will come outside.
Big case, terrorist Yasin Malik has been sentenced to a life in prison and in 2 different cases, which means 2 concurrent life sentences. He will spend the rest of his remaining years in jail, is what the learned judge said. In other cases, he's been fined up to 10 lakh rupees. He's been fined 10 lakh rupees in some cases, 10,000 rupees fine in other cases, and 10 years rigorous imprisonment in 5 other cases, including criminal conspiracy for terror funding and terror strikes. It's a huge judgment. This, of course, is the first case, the first trial of Yasin Malik in an NIA court. He does have an opportunity to appeal in a superior court. Let's listen into reactions coming in.
Then basically a chance was given to Yasin Malik. The court has permitted him to basically say, and Yasin Malik has already pleaded before the court that he has said that मैं ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं बोलने वाला हूँ, आप जो भी सेंटेंस देना चाहते हैं आप दे सकते हैं. And but he has said कि I have been a non-violence leader, political leader in the country, and I have never basically raised this thing to divide the country for any reason. And I have been worked with for 7 Prime Ministers of India, and lastly basically when Atal Bihari Vajpayee was there, so I have been even given the passport. तो उन्होंने ये कहा था, फिर उसके बाद कोर्ट ने ऑर्डर रिजर्व किया था, उन्होंने ये भी बोला था कि कोर्ट जो है ये सब चीज़ों का ध्यान रखेगी वाइल गिविंग दी दीज आर बेसिकली मिटिगेटिंग फैक्टर्स विच कोर्ट हैज़ टू टेक केयर. देन अभी 3:30 बजे के लिए कोर्ट ने ऑर्डर प्रोनाउंस के लिए रखा था, बट सिंस ऑर्डर वाज लॉन्ग, सो अब जाके 6 बजे सो बेसिकली ऑन ईच सेक्शंस 10,000 हुआ है, एंड मैक्सिमम पनिशमेंट वाज लाइफ इम्प्रिजनमेंट. व्हाट विल बी द फर्दर प्रोसीडिंग्स, यू नो, बिकॉज ही हैज प्लीडेड गिल्टी, तो देयर विल नॉट much thing. I mean, that we'll see. That we'll see. I mean, at that point. So basically, court doesn't. I mean, this right now the proceedings have happened, and court has pronounced the imprisonment right now. The maximum punishment was given is life imprisonment by the court. There was 8 to 10 sections basically, in which under 2 sections life imprisonment was given. So that's all basically. What else you want to know?
Do tell us what is the quantum of punishment in terms of fine, in terms of concurrent.
So basically, in under section 120B, it was a 10 years rigorous imprisonment along with 10,000 fine. Under section 121, it was given life imprisonment along with 10,000 rigorous. 10,000 fine, and 121 it was again 10 years of rigorous imprisonment. But section 17 of UAPA, he has been given life imprisonment.
Under section 17?
17. Basically, under 2 sections, he has been given life imprisonment.
Where is section 17?
17 and 121. IPC. 121 also, IPC, 17 of UAPA.
The NIA had sought death penalty for him.
Court has not. Court was
so
not.
What is the next proceeding? Can he appeal in the High Court?
So we cannot much say right now because he has pleaded guilty, so he cannot go on appeal. But things. Wait for the other things. We will see what other actions.
What about the other accused?
So it has been pronounced again only Yasin Malik right now.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. So a big day as far as the terror financing is concerned. Conviction for Yasin Malik and quantum of sentence as to life imprisonment and yes, 10,000 rupees fine each. So very clearly under the stringent sections 17 of the UAPA and section 121 of the IPC, this is where Yasin Malik being given life imprisonment. There's a heavy fine which has been imposed to him. There is going to be obviously perhaps a closure for many, but as far as the other cases are concerned, they are currently going on in several other courts. But clearly, the first conviction really coming in here.
Just a start, nevertheless, it has come. Let's go across now to Shreya Chatterjee. Shreya, let's get this straight now. Of course, there are different, there are 10 years, 10,000, 10 lakh rupees fine, 7 UPA charges under which the quantum has been announced. But the waging war against the government, against the country, terror funding, 17 UAPA, 121 UPC, this is against which he's got life imprisonment.
Well, absolutely. So, Pooja, now there are 10 sections under which he's been convicted in this 2017 terror funding case, but 2 of the sections against which he's been guaranteed life imprisonment. One is section 121 of the IPC, which is waging war. For that, he's been given life imprisonment and a fine of 10,000. And under 17 UAPA, it's life imprisonment and a fine of 10 lakh. Now, all these sections under which he's been given punishments will be running concurrently. The judgment was pronounced by the special NIA judge Praveen Singh. 10 of the total sections under which he's been pronounced guilty, but 2 of those main, Pooja, are section 121 and 70 UAPA.
He was in court. How did Yasin Malik react to the sentencing? What was the atmosphere like in the courtroom, Shreya?
Well, inside the courtroom, we saw Yasin Malik. He held his calm. He was calm since morning. Remember, he's the one who fought his case by himself. He refused for a lawyer, is why an amicus curiae was also given, so that the charges are explained to him. The same happened when the judge was pronouncing the order. The amicus curiae was explaining the charges to Yasin Malik. He held calm and he heard all the charges. Before the judge was arriving, he was also given a chair to sit because it was quite a long time.
Stay on with me because right now reactions coming in from all sides. Let's listen in to what lawyers are saying at the NIA.
ग्रेवर है, मतलब उसके अलावा 2 ही ऑप्शन थी, लाइफ और डेथ. तो लाइफ मिल गया तो इट्स ठीक है, बाकी डिसाइड करेंगे. अभी फाइल पे पुट अप होगा, हायर अथॉरिटीज का क्या व्यू है वो लोग बताएंगे.
लेकिन इसमें जो धाराएं लगाई गई वो काफ़ी स्ट्रांग धाराएं हैं जिस पर कोर्ट ने बहुत अच्छे से संज्ञान लिया है और आपकी अधिकतर चीज़ें आपने सिद्ध भी की और सिद्ध होने के साथ साथ आरोप सिद्ध होने के साथ साथ मुजरिम ने तस्लीम भी किया, ये स्वीकार किया कि हाँ उसने ये अपराध किए हैं.
देखिए, पहले तो इन्वेस्टिगेशन बढ़िया हुई है केस में, तभी अक्यूज्ड को पता था कि कॉन्टेस्ट करके भी कोई फ़ायदा नहीं है, तो उसने ऐसे बिना सोचे समझे तो किया नहीं. तो ग्रेवर ऑफेंस था, बड़े लेवल पे कॉन्स्पिरेसी थी, इंडिया से थी, फॉरेन कंट्री से थी, तो बड़े लेवल का हाई प्रोफाइल होता है.
जो लोग इस मामले में पीड़ित रहे हैं, जिन वायु सैनिकों की हत्या की यासिन मलिक ने अपनी गोली से और निहत्थे लोगों की, ऐसे मासूम लोगों की, उनके परिवार वालों का कहना है कि बाकी तो अदालत जो भी सजा दे, लेकिन हम चाहते हैं खून का बदला.
देखिए, मेरा ये आर्गुमेंट आज ये रहा है कि देखिए रेट्रीब्यूटिव जो थ्योरी है ना, पनिशमेंट, इट टॉक्स अबाउट आई फॉर आई एंड टूथ फॉर टूथ. And I have made submission to the court that in the case of Yasin Malik, even reformatory theory can't be think of because he is a hardcore fundamentalist.
वो तो ठीक है. क्या यासिन मलिक ने जब ये कहा कि वो गांधी जी के रास्ते पर चल रहा है हिंसा छोड़ने के बाद, तो अदालत क्या उससे भी कुछ कन्विंस हुई लगता है?
उनका आर्गुमेंट था, उनके वकील ने भी कहा, और वो लेकिन वो ऑन रिकॉर्ड नहीं है ना चीज़ें. बोलने में कुछ मरी, गांधीयन पर प्रोटेस्ट कैलेंडर मिला है, ईमेल्स मिली हैं, वो सब कुछ एविडेंस, स्ट्रॉन्ग एविडेंस था हमारे पास.
इलेक्ट्रॉनिक एविडेंस भी मिले?
बहुत मिला है, सब कुछ था. व्हाट्सएप चैट्स थी, ईमेल्स थी, वो सब एविडेंस था.
तो सिर्फ ये कह देने से कितना वो रहता है कि साहब हम तो गांधी जी के रास्ते पर चल रहे हैं और हथियार छोड़ने के बाद हमने तो 7 प्रधानमंत्रियों के साथ काम किया और गांधी जी के रास्ते पर है.
कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. देखिए, आपका बिहेवियर और आपकी एक्टिविटीज, मुंह में कुछ और है, अंदर कुछ और है, वो नहीं चलेगा.
तो ये कहते हैं कि 900 चूहे खा के बिल्ली हज को चली, तो बिल्ली तो हाजी हो सकती है लेकिन कानून की निगाह में कोई निर्दोष नहीं हो सकता.
कोर्ट हैज डिसाइडेड आफ्टर टेकिंग इनटू कंसीडरेशन all the oral and documentary evidence which we have submitted in the charge sheet.
कितना चुनौतीपूर्ण रहा आप लोगों के लिए एनआईए का इसे यहाँ तक अंजाम तक पहुँचाना? कितने लोगों की टीम लगी थी और कितने आप लोगों ने दिन रात काम किए था?
देखिए, पहले मैं ना थोड़ा हमारा ऑफिशियल स्टेटमेंट जो है इसको ना माना जाए. बीइंग अ प्रोसिक्यूटर मैं ठीक है, वो शाम को एक प्रेस रिलीज आ जाएगा, लेकिन ठीक है मैं थोड़ा बहुत इसके मतलब इस केस में जुड़ा हुआ हूँ शुरू से.
अंजना कश्यप सीधा आपसे सवाल पूछ रही हैं कि फांसी की सजा की मांग को लेकर आप, जिसके आप प्रोसिक्यूटर हैं एनआईए के, तो क्या आप लोग हायर कोर्ट में जाएंगे चुनौती देने के?
वी विल थिंक ओवर इट. इट विल बी द इशू विल बी टेकन अप बिफोर द हायर अथॉरिटीज एंड इसको हर एंगल से देखा जाएगा. तो जो भी डिसाइड होता है सामने आ जाएगा कुछ दिनों में.
इनका कहना है कि सीधा जो भी चीजें हायर अथॉरिटी तय करेंगी वो सामने.
All right, Gaurav, so that was the NIA lawyer, the prosecutor, and very clearly stating that they had enough evidence. Listen into more reactions.
अब सजा की जरूरत थी
और खास करके बहुत से ऐसे केस पेंडिंग्स हैं। ये तो टेरर फंडिंग का मामला है, लेकिन जो अपहरण, हत्या, इस प्रकार के जो कई इन पर केस पेंडिंग, उसमें